The Jewish community here is already on high alert, and this is the first arrest that we've seen this week in relation to anti-Semitism. This matter will return to court on October 27th.
Caroline, appreciate that. Let's go live to Jeremy Liebler. He's director of the Zionist Federation of Australia. Jeremy, thank you for your time, as always. Just to pick up on what Caroline reported there, an arrest and charges upgraded. Do you welcome the fact that our security agencies, that our police forces are moving quickly to deal with cases of any signs of anti-Semitism or harassment against the Jewish community right now?
Well, I hope that they are, and I'm pleased to see that someone's been arrested in relation to that incident. But Kieran, it's very difficult for me to describe to you what the atmosphere is like within the Jewish community at the moment. It's only been 24 hours since we woke up to see images and news of what's happened in Israel, where babies and children were found, 40 children and babies were found murdered on one kibbutz, many of them decapitated. We're seeing barbarity like we've really never witnessed before, ISIS-style barbarity. And then we turn on the news here locally and we see rallies with people yelling, "Gas the Jews." And it's very, very difficult for us to process that this is actually happening in Australia today.
Indeed, and I can only imagine the sort of trauma that is being felt right now, because as you've told us already that there are so many Jewish Australians that have family, friends, loved ones in Israel. So there's that very personal connection there as well.
Look, absolutely. I mean, there isn't anyone I know that doesn't have or knows someone that is very directly impacted by what's going on over there, and then having a sense of insecurity here as well, particularly for a community, that is really a post-Holocaust community. Australia has the highest proportion of Holocaust survivors per capita of any other country outside of Israel. And so I certainly grew up with the shadow of the Holocaust. We grew up around the dinner table with aunties with tattoos on their arms that survived Auschwitz. Many, many other family members didn't. And that's something that my children, I never thought that my children I would have to explain to them why Jewish babies are being murdered for being Jewish in 2023, and why people are shouting, "Gas the Jews," in the streets of Sydney. But Kieran, I think to some degree we have to ask the question, this isn't new. What's going on in the streets of Sydney and Melbourne as well it wasn't created from over the weekend, given what's happened in Israel. There's obviously an issue here in Australia where certain parts of society are given a free pass when it comes to the delegitimisation of Jews. Too often words are dismissed as just saying, well, they're just words, they don't mean it. When people march through the streets of Melbourne yelling and chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, we've always said that is code for the destruction of Israel. That is code for pushing all of the Jews between the river to the sea into the sea. And what we've seen over the weekend, that these are not just words for Hamas. If it wasn't for the IDF, Hamas would murder every single Israeli in the country. And unfortunately, it appears that Hamas have plenty of supporters here in Australia. Our authorities need to act and deal with this.
Yeah, well, I do hope that the Jewish community, and I know from my friends, Jewish friends, that there is a lot of love heading your way, and I just hope that the community does feel that bipartisan support politically, but also from the broader community, the vast bulk of Australians who just are appalled by the atrocities that we've seen this week, Jeremy.
Look, we really do. I mean, the bipartisan support, I met with the Prime Minister yesterday. The Leader of the Opposition has been incredibly supportive, both at a federal level and also at a state level, both Premiers Melbourne and Sydney, New South Wales and Victoria. And it means a lot. And family and friends and colleagues are all reaching out. I know that most Australians, the overwhelming majority of Australians, can see this for what it is. This is support for ISIS here in Australia. It's the equivalent of support for ISIS. And so that support is incredibly important to us. But Kieran, hope that support is not just there when, we have no choice but seeing these terrible images on social media and on our TV screens, because the next few weeks and months are clearly going to continue to be very difficult.
Well, indeed, it is shaping up as a lengthy conflict, Jeremy Liebler. Urban warfare looks likely, with a ground war almost inevitable. We're all expecting it to happen. And you would think that Hamas, with its depraved brutality with those attacks, there would have been a lot of planning in that. And with it, one would assume planning for what comes next in terms of the tunnels they've got in Gaza. It's going to get ugly, isn't it, over coming weeks and months?
It will. I mean, the main reason why Israel hasn't until now really gotten rid of Hamas and gone in is for two reasons. The first is that they could do so by air, but that would result in enormous civilian casualties. And they could go in by ground, which they've had to do occasionally, but only in a very limited way, in which case it costs the lives of hundreds and hundreds of young kids. They're in their 20s, these soldiers. This is a civilian army. Everyone goes into the army in Israel. And we know from previous experiences when the IDF have had to go on in to destroy weapons factories and the like and weed out terrorists, that the place is a massive booby trap. And it's a booby trap where Hamas hides their fighters at the bottom of hospitals and behind women and children. And we are facing a terrible, impossible dilemma at the moment. But Israel has no choice now but to go in, eradicate Hamas to secure the safety of its people.
Yeah, well, we've seen the disdain with which Hamas holds civilian life. It's appalling. Jeremy, thank you. We'll stay in touch. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.